All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. We're coming at you live from Singapore tonight or this evening, depending on where you are tuning in from. We have a great panelist session here where we're going to talk to you about how to actually operationalize customer experience management and really make it so that organizations are really using their insights from customer experience at every level. I would like to start to talk about our panelists today. First is Francis. He's a really well-known, well-respected customer experience professional from Singapore. He's been quite active in this space for a while. Wan Chi, similarly, she's a very experienced, seasoned professional from the banking sector. She's been working around the region for quite some time. And Lynn is a customer experience manager at a shipping company, and she's been working on some really exciting projects throughout the last few years. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that we're going to be exploring there. So I'll just want to give each of our panelists just a few minutes to talk about what they're doing, their current work or past experiences, and anything in between. So let's start with Francis. Hello, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Good evening to everyone. Hi, Lin and Wan Chi. Right, so I started my consulting company, CSAT, several years ago, focusing on customer experience, strategy, focusing also on innovation part of that. Because of my tech background, I spent about 15 years in the tech space, primarily from some of the key companies like SAP, Microsoft, HP, and Accenture. So after that, so therefore, normally and naturally, I'm inclined towards technology and how really technology is the underlying platform, if you like, to power how companies derive their strategy, cut across. And I'm extremely passionate about customer experience because fundamentally people buy from people and people come back to buy again because of the experience. So I'm very glad today to be able to share some of my thoughts, and most importantly, I'd like to learn from our fellow panelists today as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Francis. Wan Chi, could you give us a few words about what you're doing?
Okay, thank you, Mike, for your invitation. Good evening, to everyone. Good evening to Francis and Lynn. I'm so glad to be here. I missed the other one, the one in October, the last one that you had. So I'm glad that I could make it for this one. So primarily, my experience comes from banking, the banking and finance sector. I have more than 16 years in that sector. I spent 6 years in one of the largest airlines in Singapore. I think you all will know Singapore only have one airline. Right, so what I have done is I started as a frontliner. I answer calls. I manage complaint. Then I move on. So I'm one of those I'm one of those very traditional customer experience folks who are now trying to transit into the new era where people are looking at using digital to pivot customer experience. And currently, what I've done is I've starting out on my own now to be a consultant. More on the HR side. So I'm into imparting what I have gained over the years to people whom maybe I have not met, into sharpening their customer experience skills, into sharpening their skills in connecting with customers. So currently I'm running courses, online courses, right, for the sales and service folks. Okay.
Great, thank you very much. And Lynn, what are you doing currently?
Thanks, Mike. Hi, Wan Chi. Hi, Francis. Nice to be here today. Thanks for the invite, Mike. Very exciting. So my name is Lynn. I am also based in Singapore, currently working in the shipping industry for a market-leading shipping company in the Asia Pacific. Shipping is probably a little bit of a different industry in that we're a very old industry. So there's a lot of different changes that need to happen at the same time, and it's a super exciting time to be in a place where there's such an interest and such a need for new ways of doing business. So my background is I'm a marketing manager, if you'd like, but I'm specialized in customer experience in B2B industries across countries. So call it multinational strategies. I spent my formative years of my career in the music industry. So a bit of a transition from there. Went into innovation consulting, where I got to work a little bit with some of the heavy players in the financial industry, which was loads of fun. So loads of design thinking and workshops on how to improve processes and business models. And then now I've transitioned into shipping, where I'm basically spearheading the customer experience transformation that we're doing in our company, alongside the digital transformation that's been undergoing for some years now. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Lynn. So as maybe some of you know, we like to start these off with some inspiring success stories from our panelists. Certain things that they've worked on, either are working on currently or worked in the past. Some interesting success cases where they were able to really drive change and really create a great customer experience in their projects. So let's start with Francis. Francis, what project would you like to share with us today in terms of really being able to drive change and really operationalizing customer experience and making it used throughout a organizational level? Any inspiring stories there?
Let me unmute myself. Yeah. Well, I'm working on a couple of fronts for a couple of clients, mostly of the international clients. Maybe I can just share quickly a short one. It's a regional player in the media space. So key challenges that they face is the last couple of years, even a decade now. Consumers has moved digital, right? So they are big. They have been very big time in the past across magazines, a big player across many brands. With very famous brands today, we still see the hard copies all over the shops. The thing is readership is down, revenues challenge. They have to transition. So over the last 2 years, there has been extreme focus and investment from this client in understanding the customer experience of their clients, customers. What do they want? They know they need to move digital, but that's just only the beginning. And also, I often tell them that technology is often just a vehicle that really bring you there. You need to be clear where you want to get to, the destination. So we spend a lot of time understanding what the destination is and what does destination means for which customer segments and which customer personas. Though that was pretty fundamental, but I admire that they took up my suggestion that a large part of the organizations needs to understand, particularly every marketing person needs to understand what customer journey is, how did they derive a very good customer journey, how to develop and continuously using agile methodology, which I'm a coach of agile as well, using agile to help them to make sure to continuously refine the customer persona, continuously refine the customer journey, so that they have a crystal clear understanding of where are the gaps and where are the opportunities. From that, then they begin to prioritize the opportunities and gaps, and they because investment is not a endless pit, so therefore they have to focus on the quick wins. They also focus on some strategic large wins, which are some of them are also strategic in the sense that they will get a lot of visibility. So with that, they have a clarity of a plan, which one to invest to. At the end of the day, also design thinkings are also been adopted. So, for example, we use design thinking for their magazine's team. They came up with very creative ideas. As you know, design thinking, it's you can really be crazy and wild, particularly during the ideation stage. Now, the beautiful thing is this: almost 60% of the design thinking groups that we did the workshops with, 60% of the groups, the projects has been launched as live in production. And the leadership was really happy with the small investments of the design thinking workshops. When I trained them, they got 60% outcome. At least they became a product, and then out of 60%, at least some of them were profitable. So this was pretty sweet for them.
Wow, very impressive. I mean, especially, it's media companies are, going through a crazy transformation, and in all media companies, from movies to music to written media. It's a really interesting space here, and it's really exciting to hear that you can really drive. from what I can tell, it's quite a short period of time, and you've been able to, drive profit from this sort of transformative, process. It's really impressive. Really, thanks for sharing that, Francis. Wan Chi, would you like to share some interesting things that you're currently working on or have worked on?
Okay, I will share an example of a success story that one of my former employer, one of the largest banks in Singapore, what they've done. I think it's a very good example of how they have operationalized customer experience using data, and how they have operationalized customer experience in daily operation of a call center. So I used to be in a call center for a long time, and with this bank, what my role at that time was to manage big data and to look at customer analytics. What we have done was we sliced the data for the call center, and we noted that the top 5 calls that came in with the highest, what we call AHT, average handling time. And one of those calls, right, went down to retain cards. I'm sure maybe some of you who are like me, who are unlucky enough, right, once or twice in your life, you get your ATM card, your debit card, credit card retained. And how do you feel as a customer at that time? You panic, like, what will happen? Who is going to return me my card? Who should I call? What if I walk away? Someone take my card? So these are all the things that have gone through a customer's mind. So what we have done at that time, we've sliced the data and we say that, are we going to go by the traditional way of making it easier and make the number bigger for the customer to call us? What else can we do differently? So that's where the big data team came into play. Now, data are just data if you do not understand the mind of the customer. You need to be immersed and think like a customer. So what we have gone through is we immerse ourselves the journey, the bank, the team, and we realized that instead of waiting for the customer to call, right, we will reach out to the customer first. So the end result is, after a card was retained, instead of letting the customer go through the anxiety of calling, and even if a customer got the number, they still can't get through because of the long waiting time, that added on to the frustration of the customer. What we'll do is, once your card get retained, touch wood, okay, we read your data, we will send a message to your registered mobile number immediately, almost instantaneously, and we let you know that, hey, we know that your card is retained. Not to worry, we send you a new card within X number of days. Now, if you're a customer, all right, you definitely feel like, okay, at least someone knew that my card is retained. I know that it's safe, and I know that I will receive a new card. Now, what's the outcome? Customer, right, no longer feel anxious at that point. We also reduce the number of calls. We make our agent happier, because these are one of the more emotional calls than any agent could have handled. So by doing that, right, that's a good example that I always hold on very close to my heart. A good example of how we can operationalize customer experience in our daily operation for customers and for staff. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the example there. It's quite cool. I know it happened to me quite some many times, and it's always, like you say, it's really really weird situation where you're not sure if it's you should call the bank, if you should go into your mobile banking app. It's quite anxious situation, like you said, and yeah, it's just so it shows you how actually proactive we can be about doing our just a simple operational thing about renewing a card, or just ATM situation where you can really be proactive, and I'm sure it also drove a lot of renewals too with the cards opening too, right? That would be probably people would be much more willing to renew and get a new card from you guys.
No, it is about removing combustion point along the journey, right? Because these days, right, customer will take it that this is a hygiene factor. It is given, right? If you do well in hygiene factor, right, no customers will buy more from you. However, if you don't do well, that's the moment of truth that maybe you will turn them away. You add on to the frustration. You will add on to their perception of who you are. So these are all opportunities for you to tell the customers that we are serious and we are thinking about you.
Yeah, that's really inspiring. Thank you very much, Wan Chi. Lynn, any inspiring stories from you?
Yeah, thank you. That was a great story, Wan Chi. I must admit that anything to do with the proactive responses to customer pain points is That's my favorite thing. If we can solve that, that's a good start. Yeah, so I'd say that that where we are at the moment is we're in a bit of the infancy of the project, and I think that one of the biggest wins that I think I've noticed over especially the past year is how this idea of customer experience and the terminology is slowly seeping into the company. So I'm so mindful that this is a shipping company and a container shipping company, and it's what I would probably call a legacy company in a legacy industry. So there's years and years of processes and departmental ways of doing certain things, and it doesn't just go from a shipping company to the customer. It goes to like authorities and banking and insurers. There are many parties involved in the shipping customer journey, if you want. And therefore there's years of untangling, which can be quite a daunting exercise to do. So I find that in order for us to be successful with improving the experience in the shipping space, I think that it's really important, it's really essential that everyone's on board and that all the different departments, they sort of understand this concept, and that they come together and they understand the role that they play in something, and how if you feed someone the right information, that they will know what to do with that information. And in that context, I think one of the biggest successes I've seen is, we do these quarterly relationship surveys where, we measure and benchmark the NPS, and in that you obviously get a fairly wide range of positive and negative feedback coming in. And in terms of the negative feedback we've had come in, we've started, sharing it with the respective countries and areas where the feedback is generated from, if you'd like. And then we've basically asked, in those countries, country manager or the service or the commercial manager in that particular country, like, what do you think we should do? What's going wrong? What can we do? And in most of the cases, they'll come back with sort of a generic response saying, yeah, we're familiar with this. We know that something went wrong. We've heard it. We know what's happening. And then the success becomes when you then have that conversation with someone and saying, you know what, I get that. Something went wrong. Not ideal. But one thing is the process of what's happening that has gone wrong, that obviously needs to be investigated for us to go in and say, can we make improvements to our process? But then the second side of it is that the customer is still sitting there saying, something happened. I had a bad experience. How are you gonna solve that with me? And in that context, we tell these managers, we tell them, can you maybe just reach out to the customer? Sometimes all they really want is that acknowledgement that we are aware that something went wrong and we're sorry, we're working on it. And then, in most cases, that personal experience will actually end up sticking with the customer for a very long time. And I think in that context, we've managed to move some very, very unhappy customers into extremely loyal customers within, literally a phone call. And we can actually see that these customers who have sworn off in the feedback that they'd never ship with us again and we're awful service and all that, then a couple of weeks later you see them starting to make bookings with us again. And I think that's a success outcome, that it's not really necessarily driven by the experience department, but it's actually rather that the particular managers out in the regions, that they reach out to the customers and they solve this problem. I think that's a major win on our end.
Oh, I think we lost Francis over there, but I think he'll join us shortly. Okay. In the meantime, actually, Lynn, I think your point about kind of using a simple sort of technology actually to kind of close the loop, so to speak, right? To just to let people know in your organization about there's something going on, and just to give the heads up, and then just do an old school a call, and that just changing the experience there and driving loyalty is quite inspiring actually, because people can get quite overwhelmed about designing experience management processes and doing crazy elaborate plans, but it's actually sometimes all you need is just a phone call, right? So that's quite inspiring. Thank you very much. Just actually a follow-on from there, because you kind of mentioned a little bit about NPS. Maybe we could talk about how your you're using measurement and customer experience measurement to kind of see what's going on, and perhaps tying that customer experience measurement data to certain operational processes, if you will, to kind of drive metrics like loyalty or retention or things like that. What sort of measurement processes do you have currently? Just to elaborate on that.
You asking me? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Absolutely. So just confirming. Yeah. Good question. So so basically, in terms of the measurement, we're in the process of implementing and kind of identifying what needs to be measured how. In the shipping customer journey, there are multiple touch points, and there are more than one customer involved. So there's a lot of players involved in kind of getting one container moved from a production site in one country to a port, and then to another country, and then from that country to from that port to the destination location. There's a lot of handover, and therefore a lot of friction gets generated. It's almost an impossible customer experience assignment. So what we're basically saying is that if we can create this 360-degree view, which is not just one particular customer, but it's actually all the different key players and parties that hand over and have these frictions, if we can map out how those work and then get a better view on all the different data that's generated, different points, then obviously machine learning, we're not getting around it, but like what you get is then all this data in, and you can start using different algorithms to create clustering, unsupervised learning, where you look into how these data, how there's patterns in there that we just can't see with the naked eye. And the reason why it's really important that it's a 360-degree view is especially because of this departmentalization and the silos that very quickly get generated. And I think in many industries, this has obviously been a problem, and one of the reasons why digitalization came about to begin with. But if you have an industry like shipping, where there are so many departments and so many different interactions that need to work in order to make this shipment happen, I think something like departmentalization, it's inevitable that it's going to cause a lot of problems. And I think that when we look at improving this experience, what we really want to create is a transparency across what's going on in the different departments. So one thing is obviously different countries, but also if there is a custom declaration that has gone wrong in one place, then we have that visibility on the other end where the container is supposed to go, so we can see that there are delays happening, right? And when we have when we have all this data and we can generate a 360-degree view, we can create a better way of segmenting based on the journey, not a customer segment based on how much revenue they're generating or how many units they buy with us, but actually based on the behavior they have with us. And those segments, we can then start to look at what would be the particular value for these different types of segments. What is the value proposition that we would like to be able to generate for this particular group of customers? I think a good example is if you're selling fish and that needs to be shipped from Norway to Singapore, it's a very, very different product and a different customer you are than if you're a mining company that needs to ship gold from a mine in an off-site location to your other location on the other side of the island you're on. It's a very different type of experience. And therefore, for us as a company, the service we need to provide for the two will be very, very different. And that's what you can pick up when you look at these 360-degree patterns on how they behave with us, and you employ something like machine learning to basically mine some of these patterns and help us look at, okay, these customers behave similarly, these customers behave similarly. One of the use cases we have in mind at the moment is that when we can see this, then, for example, if you are a customer and you're shipping, let's say, fish, perhaps because your cargo is very time sensitive, perhaps if you call up or if you send an email to our customer service department, perhaps you get first in line, maybe, right? But that's more to come on that when we've managed to actually make a better view of it.
I love that example because it just blows your mind about how complicated actually some certain processes can be in different industries, and I just love that you have this opportunity to just throw out the old playbooks and really think with a fresh eyes and really consider what is a segment, why are we segmenting these customers, and really discovering everything from a new perspective. It sounds really exciting. I'm jealous.
It is.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, Wanchi, would you like to kind of elaborate on about the data aspect of customer experience management, and how a single view of the customer, the topics that we've discussed, kind of tie in data-wise and maybe analysis-wise into the operational aspects of companies, and perhaps maybe some examples from the banking sector might be relevant here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. After hearing Lynn, I'm glad I'm in banking and finance. It's a lot easier. It's about customer buying a product, buying insurance, opening an account. I don't have to worry about the fish or anything else. But interesting, it really opened up my mind to when we look at customer experience, right? It is not just the customer coming to us. It is really also about the journey of what really affects a customer from point to point. So what I can share is, based on my own experience, in the banking sector, we have lots of data, lots of it. We have lots of data points as well. If you look at just a call center alone, right, if it's a big call center, you're talking about millions of calls a year, and every call is a data point. So how do you make sense of all these data when you are being touched by the customer every day, multiple times? It can be one customer or different customers, either the same channel or different channel by one customer. So how do you make sense of all this? Well, the only thing that I would like to really, not cautious, I would like to share with all those who have dialed in this evening is, do not over-design your metrics or what you're trying to measure. You have to be very, very clear. What are you trying to arrive at? What's your destination? If you are being, okay, maybe I use the term seduced, okay, by very fanciful way of designing KPI, measurement, customer experience, right? It may distract you from your destination, where you're trying to arrive at. So always start with something that is really your customers. Now, if you talk about operationalize it, right? In the banking sector, many of our matrices or our indicators are what I call lagging indicators. We only look at indicators that have already happened. For example, customers have already left us, attrition. Or for example, customer already complained. I'm already very unhappy with you. Customer already written on the social media. These to me are all lagging indicators. So in the banking sector, I think it is time. Some of the very progressive banks, they are already moving into what we call the leading indicators. However, banking being banking, we are always looking at the bottom line. What are the leading indicators for P&L? But very few of us are starting to look at what are the leading indicators for customer experience. How can you tell that the customer is about to leave you? These are all the things that we have to start to look at. So in some of the experience that I've done, right, most of the banks that I've been with are all lagging indicators. There's one particular example that I'd like to share about over designing is because Mike has introduced me of somebody who had been to work in other parts of the other countries in this region, and yes, based on my experience in that particular country, right, we have defined or we have launched 10 channels of measuring service. Now, out of those 10 channels, even include cameras in the branch to look at what the staff are doing. So that's a good example of me saying it's over-designing. Okay, how are you, the way that you monitor your staff, right, honestly has nothing to do with your customers. It has nothing to do with how the customer feels. You are just monitoring your people. Okay, so bring back to the point of what Mike said. I think it is a time that banks and finance institutions really need to look at leading indicators instead of lagging indicators. One of the way that I would suggest to do it is you have to understand that in customer experience, it can't stand alone. It has very much to work with your sales folks, your products folks, your channel folks, and your operational folks. In order for us to design leading indicators, you first need to understand what are the leading indicators in all your key stakeholders. Then you just pick a few that you know you can do well in and start with that. One of the examples could be usage. A sudden drop in usage. Inactivity of any customers. A customer has been inactive, did not use your card, did not activate anything about the account for over a year. Or abandonment. Abandonment in call, abandonment in your product web page. These are all indicators to tell you that something is wrong out there in your touch point when you are managing or when you are engaging with your customers. Okay, that's all I have, Mike. Thanks.
Yeah, that's really nice. That's actually nice to hear from you because one of the things that we always push for is, the idea of combining CX data with operational data, and how that is, enriches the whole, data set that you have, and it really helps you, not just figure out what's going on now, or happened, yesterday, but actually start to predict things and see trends and for me, the best type of data that you mentioned is like the operational stuff, like page views on a website, abandoned carts on an e-commerce site, or non-completed forms on an account opening site on a bank. All those nice data points you can use to really understand what's going on, and have like quick wins for when you do improvements in the journey. So it's just really exciting stuff. So thank you for touching on that. Just a little thing that I want to mention was we're going to have a QA session at the last 15 minutes. So we have a link below the video here. It's a form, quite short form. Send us out all your questions. If you have any questions for specific panelists or for the panel in general, please feel free to submit your questions through there. And as I mentioned, we'll do that in the last 15 minutes. Yeah, so that was the housekeeping note. Let's go on with our subject. So, Francis, do you have any inspiring ways that you've seen customer experience data perhaps glued together with operational data being used in some of your projects or your past experiences, and that really drove bottom line metrics like the bread and butter of companies like profitability and loyalty and things like that?
Sure. Maybe I can touch on two aspects. One would be what the fellow panelists have touched on, which is about the measurement. So I mean, there has been a lot of talks about even NPS score. Does it really matters, and how does it really drive customer experience at the end of the day? Had a lot of debate, but my conclusion after I've worked across with so many organizations across different sectors, and I'm also working very intensively with a bank in trade. So also with also the trade finance as well. So what Lynn has mentioned about is very close to my heart about the shipping, the whole journey. And I must say that one fundamental thing I observe is this: most organizations, right, departments, we are organized by silos, and then sometimes we call verticals. But there's a famous saying that I heard from, and I often reuse it again, is that we organize ourselves vertically in our organization, but customers see us horizontally as one. So it is a very basic fact. We all know that, but sometimes we just realize that when we as customers, we just cannot imagine that we've been treated by, or we've been given feedback by the vendors to us saying that, I'm sorry, this is not my department, that's the other department, and this is almost like not my problem. But as customers, we don't really care, because if we associate with a brand, we buy a brand, we want to have a holistic, we expect that, right? This is almost fundamental, like what just now Wanchi has mentioned. So going back to this fundamental of being seen as horizontal, it's very important to be able to respond to that by having, and I agree Wanchi said that don't overcomplicate it, right? Because you overcomplicate a certain measurement, sometimes you have majority of employees a little bit lost. But I've also seen that sometimes if you don't measure rightly, because people are what you measure, they behave how you measure and what they are being measured. So assuming that and I agree, Manchi, that do not over design, go as simple as you can, but sufficient enough, balanced enough, covers enough angles, which are 4 areas I always talk about, which is simple, is a system, process, people, and tools. The people side is important. Customer experience and HR need to move very closely, and which is also linked to the second part about operational data. There's tons of it. There's no lack of operational data. The question is, how do you get the most relevant data? The most, and I said most relevant, because I would say probably 80-20 rule, 20% of the total 100% data are relevant to drive excellent customer experience, right? So with that having said, that you need to have a very clear roadmap in what the impact. So the operation data has to impact customer experience. Now with that, then you will know what are the relevant operational data that you bring forward, and then combine with the experience data. The difference between the two is one is a very hardcore data that we get because of our operation of our business. The other one is a little bit hard to get, but of course the good news is a lot of organizations are going towards measuring customer experience. These are how customers feel. Combining both is important, and I would say that traditionally HR department has not been active or been pulled in to drive customer experience. I think that's got to change, because HR department drives culture. I mean, culture is on their lap, right? It's on the lap. CEO will say, hey, you drive culture. And culture is a very fundamental of customer experience, how employees behave, not just internally among ourselves, how we behave, especially towards giving the service to customers. So I think there's a fundamental mindset shift right now, that HR culture, especially customer experience culture, and marketing, sales, all holistically got to come together and drive the right metrics and the balanced scorecard towards achieving the common goals. The common goals, which is obvious, making customers happy, coming back again, and telling other people to buy the brand.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really nice to hear it from you, because you make it very structured and quite straightforward actually. But we see a lot of companies struggle in organizing their initiatives and having a structured way to go about these things, which actually fundamentally are quite simple things. And the example that you gave about the customer seeing only a brand, not a certain department, or things like that is quite interesting and great to hear. And I want to kind of touch on one of the points you made, and also Wan Chi also mentioned that it really ties in with a little bit about the employee experience and the employee engagement. So there's some very clear ideas right now going on about operationalizing CX together with teams, and really employee engagement and everything tying together with all of this. So my question is to you, Wan Chi, what do you think about this? Do you think this has some substance, or are there other ways to do it? What do you think about this?
Sorry, Mike, are you asking a question about employee engagement?
How employee engagement and employee experience ties in together with operationalizing customer experience, using data from the operations, from the customer experience, and tying that all in with strategies to improve employee engagement, and perhaps maybe measuring and understanding employee experience in general.
Okay, so the employees are often, right, the most neglected resource that a company has. I mean, it's very sad to say this, right? Because sometimes before we went out to the market to sell a new product, like a new credit card, a new deposit, a new insurance, right? We have really neglected, I mean, at least for the banking and the finance sector, we have really neglected that our employees, they should be the first customer that we look at. So what is, from their perspective, because they are also customers, at the same time, they are also the employee, what would be their experience? What feedback would they have given us if they are the customers? And really, you can trust them to give you the most honest feedback. Even if sometimes you ask them not to tell you, they will offer it to you. So yes, employee experience is important if we look at them as a customer. However, on the other side, like what Francis has touched on, right? They are also the key phase and years fronting our customers. Unless you are a company that operates solely by robots, by AI, you do need them. They are the one. You know, many of if you're talking about high net worth customer, any high net worth customer, when they have an issue, they will not be texting or doing live chat or doing robotics, no. They will be calling their RM. And the first person that they will scold will be the RM. So that's where the human touch is still needed, especially if you are driving a very segment-specific kind of strategy for your customer experience. Certain segment, you need human touch. And that's where your employee engagement, your employee experience is critical to make it successful for you. Because at the end of the day, when you need to execute certain customer strategy, your human factor will be a key touch point for certain segments. What I can share is from some of my experience that I had. One of these local airlines, they are huge in employee engagement. And they will not just do it just because it's a yearly or every 2 yearly exercise. What they will do is they will even put together task force, putting senior VP as the leader to ensure that some of the issues that both my fellow panelists have brought up, which is working in silos and not working along each other, right? They will put in place task force, not only projects, but training, but cultural program to ensure that from different touch point that is critical along the customer journeys, these folks are learning how to appreciate each other, understanding the work of each other, and learn how to work together to bring that desired customer experience to the customers, to the end user. Yeah. So if you ask me again and again, I will tell you again and again, it is important. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much, Vanchi. Lynn, I know that you have quite a remote, at times remote workforce at your company, and it can be quite challenging to keep everyone aware of each other and keep everyone connected. What are your thoughts on the subject? How are some ways that companies can approach this and to remove silos or keep everyone connected, and also empower people on the field with more data from throughout the company, so that they can do their jobs better and provide better experience to customer.
Yeah, thanks. I think honestly that's a great question, and I think especially at the moment, it's with the global situation, I think it's an essential part that businesses have probably neglected for quite some time, and they think that something like like your day-to-day life and how you feel about going to work, all that stuff, that belongs with HR, which I think is a complete flaw. I think that lies with the very top of the company. Obviously, it's their responsibility that whoever works for them come to work every day and they like what they do. So I would say I'm probably from the school of thought within the experience economy that says that it's not really customer experience, it's actually just experience of all the people. And it's this idea that we all have needs and desires and wants and pain points, and whether you're an external customer or an internal customer, everyone comes together to co-create some value. So saying us having customers who need to have goods shipped from one place to the other, they will come to us, and then our great staff internally, they will obviously serve them and help them with this need. But actually, if we didn't have customers, then our employees wouldn't have a job either. So there is a co-creation of value, which I think is essential to acknowledge. And in that space, I think that when we talk about engagement, I think it's super important that people are engaged in the job that they do. However, I actually think it's much more about motivation and finding a purpose in what you do. And I think that especially at the moment where everyone's working remotely, for us, obviously, that's a general thing that many countries. But now that people are not in the office anymore, but working remotely, I find that many people are over-engaged. They are working so much, working long hours. They're putting in extra work to demonstrate to everyone that they're doing something, and it's really important. And I think that that's actually driving a really unhealthy culture that I think probably most of us right now resonate a little bit with, that it doesn't actually feel very good most of the time. So I think it's much more important to start looking at, actually, let's move away from engagement when we talk about the employee experience and start talking about motivation. Like, what actually makes you come to work every day? What is it you feel like you want to do? And I think that in our case, for example, if you ask our, let's say, service staff or our sales and our agency staff, what they probably find most motivating is the idea that we are the main source of shipment of goods into the Pacific Islands. So if we stop shipping, most of these islands don't have any food or anything. So I think that's a massive motivator, that like you come to work and you're actually helping the facilitation of the livelihood of some of these very remote locations in the Pacific Island. It's a great motivation. So to answer your question on what you can do, I think that what especially the main leadership should do is they should focus on empowering people, like give them more power in their role all the way out to the front line to do their job better and make better decisions, because they are the ones who are talking with an upset customer. Maybe they had their card stolen in an ATM. So when they call in and they're really upset, that service person shouldn't say, "That's not my department." They should say, "I hear you. That's really bad. Let me solve this." And they should be empowered to be able to solve that problem. So I think it requires some restructuring, and I think it requires potentially some workshops around how can we bring people together and potentially redesign the way that we actually work, especially now that we're being forced to work from home.
I just like to add something about what Lynn has mentioned about motivation, and it really sinks something into my heart about really the purpose-driven life we want in the corporate world, in a career. So that really sparks the thought I have, and we read a lot about, is if the employee and the organization is very clear about the purpose, then they really has the strong motivation factor when they come to work. They know there's a fundamental purpose they want to serve. Like one example that I have is a regional player in logistics. It's a Filipino base, and in Singapore, they have a tagline even: "We move lives." So something very simple, although they move boxes, and during this period of COVID, their business actually triple and quadruple because of people not being able to travel. As you can imagine, people are setting things back in replacement of the absence of the absence. With that, so the employees are having the mind that we are actually helping a lot of people bring memories back, bringing the love back, sending love back in terms of material. Although it's material, but it's a show of love and passion and appreciation. Now, with every employee having known that what they do coming to work, you can be a truck driver, you could be a agent, accounting executive. You know that at the end of the day, what you're just a piece of the puzzle to help these people to send their love back. This is so much purpose is there. There's so much motivation in what you do, and I think if this is done well in an organization, driving through, I think they're going to have a tremendous employee base, and they're going to serve a pretty good job to the customers.
Yeah, I really love that. I mean, it's the things about how to make motivation, motivate people within organizations, and like the purpose really actually reminds me of things, kind of, probably everyone knows these stories, but things about Amazon and how they kind of changed the way customer support people were able to, they have like their own budgets, and they're able to give stuff free sometimes if they think the customers would appreciate it, and things like that. There's some really interesting things that companies are doing, and there are some great potential for new ideas in that space, which I love. So yeah, I mean, love this topic. Thank you for your input. One subject that I wanted to actually touch on was kind of about, so we talk about all of these operationalizing, projects and making these measurements, these data points accessible to all the company, and really making it a part of the day-to-day operations of people in the company. But sometimes companies can struggle when trying to figure out where to start and coming up with new projects. Do you have any pointers in that area where you have any recommendations for companies that are maybe just starting to just getting into this subject, and what are some good ways to kind of figure out what to do, and maybe what to prioritize, and how to approach this topic of figuring out how to tackle these issues. So Wanchi, let's go with you. Any pointers for perhaps companies that are starting with their journey?
Okay, because I have worked for mostly very established companies where they have clear vision of where they want to go, where they want to arrive. So the way that we have what we have done to define it is to really, first, you have to be very aligned to your overall corporate strategy. Especially for customer experience, it is very hard for any customer experience professionals in a big corporation to convince or to get buy-in if you are doing something that is different from the corporate strategy. You need to be first aligned. Your project or what you're trying to do has to be very aligned, and that's when you then start to create value. Right, so you have to be aligned first, and then you have to create value by looking at, if this is the role that I have now, what would be the value that I'm bringing to my company? What would be the value that I'm bringing to my fellow colleagues? What would be the value that I'm bringing to my customers? We can't just look at, because I'm a customer experience person, right? I will only look at customers. Ultimately, we work for a company. You have to bring value. Your bosses are going to look at you and, you're talking about this, but what's the value to me? So you have to manage stakeholders' expectation. So how we have some of the experience that I have to start off is we look at what are the key pain points of customer. I think this is very basic but very effective if you really don't know where to start. Look at pain points, and that's where you deep dive into all these pain points, right? What is actually caused by human, like what Francis mentioned earlier. There will be system, tools, people. And I think you mentioned before, Francis, sorry, I missed out the last one, right? Then you can then decide, if it is tools and systems, what are the quick wins? If it's people, what are the quick wins? If it's culture, what are things? Then only when you will have a very structured approach to it. You look at quick wins first. Can I resolve all this or provide a solution within the next 6 months, 3 to 6 months? Okay, if I can, then you then prioritize what are the top 3. Please don't prioritize 100 out of 100. That's not prioritization. Prioritize the top 3, top 5. That's prioritization, right? Even for quick wins, I have been through some of the organizations that prioritize 136 projects out of 150. That's not prioritization. You really prioritize and say that, for my quick wins, the top 3, I'm going to do it. For the midterms project, this will be projects that maybe you touch technology, you touch culture, you need to upskill your people. That's maybe 6 months to 18 months, depending, right? And what do you need to do? Do you need to build a foundation first? Do you need your quick wins to build a foundation, or to build a success story before you get more buy-in? All these you need to prioritize and think about it. And what about your long term, your 18 months to 36 months? What are the long-term projects? So you need to face it, and you need to know at each phase what is your deliverables, what is your incremental. So in Agile, right, we also talk about is sprint. But in long term, you can't do sprint every week, every weekly, no. Every 2 weeks, no. But you need to know in every stage, there must be some incremental results that you want to show. You have to be very clear and define it very well, right? So based on my experience is start on those that seems to have high impact and quick wins first. So that's where you create a success story. You get buy-in from stakeholders. Then you move on to those who are a little bit more complicated, right? And you need more people to help you. Don't start on everything. don't boil the ocean. The way that we say it, don't start on that. Prioritize it and start pieces that you can manage. Thank you.
Yeah, love that. Really great points. Lynn, any ideas about prioritizing projects, things that you're looking into or doing currently? Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Absolutely. I think that you made some very good points there, Wanchi, and I super agree with you. I think it becomes a very strategic conversation very quickly. And I think that in my experience, obviously not as much as the two of you, but in my experience, what really becomes challenging is that there are multiple different priorities from different departments, and they don't necessarily align with each other very well. So I find that what really needs to be done is that the top management at the company, they need to be clearer on what is it we're trying to achieve, and then they need to, as you said, prioritize what is most important. And I think it's also a key for a good strategy is basically strategy is never around all the things you can do. It's about choosing the things you want to do. And I think it's very crucial that on one hand, you need strategic planning and consideration of what are the things that can be done to achieve a certain vision. But then next to that, you also need the execution part. And I think that part is often neglected, that you need to actually sit down and say, okay, now we have, as you said, 150 different priorities, and we're choosing to focus on 146 of them. You're never going to be able to plan and execute all of them to a good level. You just can't control that much. So I would go in and say, okay, from the ones that we choose are most important, as you said, short term, medium term, long term. And I'd look at making sure that we're making a proper plan with proper objectives and key results, or milestones, if you'd like, that we seek to hit. And they obviously need to be smart. They need to be measurable. They need to be attainable. But basically indicators for what are the milestones, key results that we believe we need to hit in order for us to measure whether or not we are meeting this strategic objective that we have chosen to do, not because we can, but because it meets the overall strategy. Yep.
Yeah, love that. Thank you very much. Francis, what are your thoughts? I know that you coach people on these subjects quite a lot, and from agile to design thinking, you're quite well versed in this area. What are your tactics that you use to really make sure people are razor focused on the right things, and also have like a open mind about projects and initiatives?
Okay, let me start with perhaps a suggestion where some companies can consider. Go back to basics about what did they are. I think we touched on a couple of these. Maybe I just summarize a bit. The purpose for the leadership, and even for the executives in this call, you can work with your leadership to look at continuously to bring back to the forefront, if you like, the purpose, mission of the organization again. And with that clear in mind, there will be elements of customers definitely inside there. Of course, the mission statement, vision statement, which I work with a lot of clients, have where they want to get to for the business, where they get, but in order to drive revenues and to drive to where they want to get to, you need customers to be supporting that vision, because without customers, you virtually don't have revenue, right? So it's often a very revenue-driven objectives as one of the primary driving structure. Look at the customer aspect of that. That's one. The second one I would suggest would be looking at an outside-in point of view. What I mean outside-in would be have a view how the customers get impacted in what they want, and then translate it back in how you get organized. Instead of how we get organized, like we have the 3 guys doing this, we have one truck driver, we decided to have 1 sales, and we decide our structure, and then we go out and we tell customers, you order this way, you pay us this way, and you wait 3 days to be delivered, and this is how you pay. But customers don't want that. You take it all off, you can ask customers, how do they want to be ordering? How do they want to be delivered? How do they want to be paying us? With that, then you come back and say to the drawing board and say, hey, okay, with that information, maybe we outsource this part, and maybe we do that. We have less salespeople. That conversation will be much more meaningful, because you're actually answering to the cause what customers really want, instead of so a lot of companies I see that they internally structure inside out, then they go out to tell customers to do that, and that often create a lot of friction a lot of dissatisfaction among the customers. So outside in is a very simple concept. I know there's a lot of execution, there's a lot of details that need to be ironed out, but I think it could be a good place to start just from a conceptual point, and then from there the details will come later.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great points there. It looks like we're kind of out of time. Thank you very much for joining us. I mean, it was really interesting points that I think really resonated with the people that were tuning in. We like to do these webinars about once a month, so follow us online to not to miss the next one. And to my panelists, thank you very much for joining. It was a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.